are behaving very well, that you are settled comfortably in your seats, that you have availed yourselves of the facilities in the lobby, and that you have already unwrapped any hard candies which you may have intended to enjoy over the next 120 minutes. And do not even think about operating any cellular devices which you may have had the audacity to bring with you on this occasion. There are to be no photos, no videos, no recordings of any kind, no typing with your thumbs, and absolutely no vibrations. Is that perfectly clear? Should an emergency present itself to us, I would strongly advise you to utilize the exit in the corner. Or, if you insist on being difficult, there are also exits to your left and behind this white curtain. But don't worry if things fall apart. My own personal usher will assist you in exiting the building. And now, since I have no interest in continuing this discussion, I suggest we get on with it. Understood? Yes. Oh.
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry for that, for your sake. No, I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately, but I play with wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Oh. Thank you. By the way, I see from your book that on Thursday when Lord Shawman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it at a bachelor's establishment the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I have had very little experience with it myself up to the present. I've only been married once, and that was in consequence due to a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't think I'm very much interested in your family life, Dave.
No, sir, it's not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That'll do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the law orders can't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem as a class to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Earnest Worthing.
My dear Ernest, how are you? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring one anyway? Eating as usual, I see, Algie.
It is customary, I believe, in polite society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
And one is in town, one amuses oneself, and one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
Who are these people that you amuse?
Oh, neighbours. Neighbours.
Got nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly word, never speak to one of them.
Oh, how immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Shropshire? Yes, of course. Hello. Why all these cups? Why all these cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen.
That's perfectly delightful.
Yes, it is all very well, but I don't think Aunt Augusta will quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolen is perfectly disgraceful. It's almost as bad as the way Gwendolen flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolen. I have come to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you thought you'd said you'd come up for pleasure. I call that business.
Oh, how utterly unromantic you are.
Well, there's nothing romantic about proposing. It's very romantic being in love. But I don't see anything romantic about a definite proposal. One might be accepted. One usually is, I believe, and then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If I ever get married, I'll try to forget the fact.
Oh, I have no doubt about that, dear Algie.
Don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're ordered specially for Aunt Augusta.
You've been eating them all the time.
Oh, that's an entirely different matter. She's my aunt. Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter's for Gwendolen. Gwendolen is devoted to bread and butter.
And perfectly good bread and butter it is, too.
Oh, my dear fellow, you need not eat as if you were going to eat at all. You act as if you were married to her already. You are not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
That's nonsense.
It isn't. It is a great truth that accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolen is my first cousin. Before I allow you to marry her, you'll have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily. What on earth do you mean? What do you mean, dear Algie, by Cecily? I don't know anyone with the name Cecily.
Would you be so kind as to bring me the cigarette case that Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room last time he dined here?
Yes.
You mean to say you've had my cigarette case all this time? Wish to goodness you'd let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. Very nearly offering a large award.
Oh, I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
There's no point in offering a large award now that thing's been backed.
I find that rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. Thank you. Oh, however, makes no matter, for now that I look at the inscription inside, I find this thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times. And you have no right whatsoever to read what's written inside. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady too, lives in Tunbridge Wells.
Yes, but why does she call herself Little Cecily if she's your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. That is a matter that surely an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt should be exactly like your aunt. It is absurd. Just give it back, Algie.
Oh, yes. But why does your aunt call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. Why, there's no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt. But why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, would call her own nephew her uncle? I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all, it's Ernest.
It isn't Ernest. It's Jack.
But you've always told me it was Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. Why, you are the most earnest-looking person I've ever met in my entire life. Perfectly absurd you're saying your name isn't Ernest. It's on your cards. Here is one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B for the Albany. See, I'll keep this as proof that your name is Ernest if you ever attempt to deny it to me, or to Gwendolen, or to anyone else.
My name is Ernest in town, and Jack in the country, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that still does not account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, calls you her uncle. Come, old boy. I've always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist, and I'm quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by a Bunburyist?
Oh, I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you're kind enough to inform me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Will you produce my cigarette case first?
Here it is. Now, produce your explanation and pray make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there's nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me, in his will, guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her uncle under motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss PRISM.
And where is that place in the country, by the way?
Oh, that is nothing to you, dear boy. You are surely not invited, and I may tell you candidly that the place is not in Shropshire.
Oh, I suspected that, my dear fellow. I've bunburyed all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now, go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
Dear Algie, I don't know if you'll be able to understand my true motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. And a high moral tone can hardly be said conducive to one's health or to one's happiness. So in order to get up to town, I have always pretended to have a younger brother of the name of Earnest, who lives in the Albany and gets in the most dreadful scrapes. That is the whole truth, pure and simple.
Oh, the truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either. And modern literature, a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't all be a bad thing.
Oh, my dear fellow, literary criticism is not your forte. Don't try. What you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying so. In fact, you are one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Ernest, who you use to come up to town as often as you like. I have invented an invaluable, permanent invalid called Bunbury. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. You see, if it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary scarlet fever, cholera, plague, no. Oh, extraordinary bad health. You see, if it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willis's, for I have really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked for you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
No, I know, you're so absurdly careless about sending out invitations. It's so bad. Nothing annoys people more than not receiving invitations.
You'd best dine with Aunt Augusta.
No, I haven't the slightest intention of doing anything of the kind. You see, I dine with her on Monday, and once a week is more than enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I'm always treated as a member of the family and sent down with either no woman at all or 2. In the third place, I know precisely who she will place me next to. She will place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her husband across the dinner table. It's not very pleasant. In fact, it's not even decent. And that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their husbands is absolutely scandalous. It looks so bad. It's like washing one's own clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know that you're to be a confirmed Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunburying. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist at all. In fact, if Gwendolen is to accept me, I'm going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily's become a little too interested in him. It's rather bored. So, I'll get rid of Ernest, and I suggest you do the same with Mr. Your invalid friend with the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which seems to me to be extremely problematic, you will be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
If I am to marry a charming girl like Gwendolen, and she's the only girl in my entire life that I would marry, I certainly would not want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will.
Heavens, don't try to be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
My dear fellow, it isn't perfectly easy to be anything nowadays. That must be Aunt Augusta. Now, if I can get her out of the way for, say, 10 minutes, so that you can have the chance of proposing to Gwendolen, may I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
I suppose so if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It's so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
Oh, I'm feeling quite well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Oh, dear me, you are smart.
I am always smart, am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. It would leave no room for developments, and I intend to develop in many directions. I'm sorry if we are a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. And now, I'll have a cup of tea, and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Won't you come and sit Here, Gwendolen.
Thanks, Mamma. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens! Lane! Why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in market this morning, so I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir. Not even for ready money.
Thank you, Lane. That'll do. Oh, my dear Auntie Augusta, I am grieved indeed to hear that there were no cucumbers. Not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Lady Harbury. Thank you. I've quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She's such a nice woman and so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, I'll have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight.
I hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he is accustomed to that.
It is a great bore. It's a terrible disappointment to me, but well, I've just received a telegram to say that my poor friend Bunbury is very ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
It is very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, Bunbury's a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, Algernon, that I think it is high time that Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or to die. This shilly-shally with the question is absurd. Nor do I in any way approve of the modern sympathy with invalids. I consider it morbid. Illness of any kind is hardly a thing to be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. I am always telling that to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice as far as any improvement in his ailment goes. I should be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury from me to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday, as I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season when everyone has said practically whatever they had to say, which in most cases was probably not much.
I'll ask Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious. But I think I can promise he'll be better by Saturday. There is, of course, a great difficulty of the music. You see, if one plays good music, people don't listen. If one plays bad music, people don't talk. But I'll run over the program I've drawn out for you if you will kindly join me in the next room for a moment.
Thank you, Algernon. It is very thoughtful of you. I'm sure the program will be delightful after a few expurgations. Gwendolen, you will accompany me. Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
Oh, I do mean something else.
I thought so. I am never wrong.
I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I have often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any girl I have ever met. Since I met you.
Yes, I am quite well aware of the fact. And for me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines. And has reached the provincial pulpits, I am told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. In a moment, Algernon first mentioned to
Gwendolen.
Passionately.
Oh, darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Ernest.
But do you mean to say you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Earnest?
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know it is. But suppose it was something else. Do you mean to say you couldn't love me then?
Ah, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Yes, well, personally, darling, I don't much care for the name of Earnest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own.
Yes.
It produces vibrations.
Yes, well, Gwendolen, there are lots of other much nicer names, like Jack. A charming name.
Jack. No, there's very little music in the name Jack, if any at all, indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I've known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She must never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolen, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There's no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, yes. Surely you know that I love you, and you led me to believe that you are not completely indifferent to me.
I adore you. But you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
May I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolen!
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Oh! Gwendolen, will you marry me?
Oh, of course I will, darling. How long you've been about it. I'm afraid you have had very little experience in how to propose.
One, I have never loved anyone other than you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. Oh, what wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They're quite blue. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing! Rise, sir, from a semi-recumbent posture. It is most ingenerous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finished what? May I?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I, or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of that fact. And now, I have a few questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. While I am making these inquiries, you, Gwendolen, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mamma!
In the carriage. Gwendolen! The carriage!
Yes, Mamma!
You can take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
About to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men, although I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. However, I am quite ready to enter your name should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes. I admit I suppose.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I've always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I am pleased to hear it. I don't approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or investment?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory.
And I have a country house too, with some land attached to it, about 1,500 acres. I don't depend on it for my real income. In fact, as far as I can make out, the poachers are the only ones who make anything.
A country house? How many bedrooms? Well, that point can be cleared up afterward. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature, like Gwendolen, could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
I have a house on Belgrave Square. It's let by the year to Lady Bloxham, but of course I can get it back in only 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham? I don't know her. What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought there was something. However, that could easily be altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Beth! If necessary, I presume. Now on to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth?
I'm afraid I don't really know. I led you to believe, Lady Bracknell, that I seem to have lost both my parents, but it would be near to the truth to say that they seem to have lost me. I don't know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, a man of kindly and charitable disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing, because he had a first-class ticket in his pocket at the time for Worthing. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
Well, this charitable gentleman who had a first-class ticket for this seaside resort find you.
In a handbag.
A bag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, a handbag. A rather large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag?
In what locality did this Mr. James or Mr. Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake of his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes. The Brighton
The
line.
line is immaterial. Mr. Worthing, I confess I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate, bred in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life that reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom at a railway station might serve to conceal a social indiscretion, has probably indeed been used for that purpose before now, but could hardly be regarded as a sure basis for a recognized position in good society.
May I ask what you would advise me to do then? I need say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolen's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to produce, at any rate, one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. Oh, I can borrow the handbag at any given moment. It's in my dressing room at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
For goodness sake, don't play that ghastly tune, Algy! How idiotic you are!
Oh.
Didn't go off all right, old boy?
No.
You don't mean to say Gwendolen refused you? No, I know it is a way she has. She's always refusing people. I think it most ill-natured of her.
Gwendolen is right as a trivet. As far as she is concerned, we're engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a gorgon. I'm not really quite sure what a gorgon is like, but I'm quite sure Lady Bracknell is one. I beg your pardon, Algie. I suppose I shouldn't talk about your aunt that way before you.
Oh, my dear fellow, I love hearing my relations abused. It's the only way I can put up with them at all.
That is nonsense.
It isn't.
I want to argue about the matter. You always want to argue about
But
things.
that is what things were originally made for.
Say, Algie, you don't suppose there's any chance of Gwendolen becoming like her mother in, say, 150 years, do you?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man ever does. That is his.
Is that clever?
Why, it's perfectly phrased, and just as true as any observation in civilized life ought to be.
I am sick to death of cleverness. Everyone is clever nowadays. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. It's an absolute public nuisance.
By the way, did you tell Gwendolen the truth about your being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
The truth is not the sort of thing one tells a nice, sweet, refined young girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the ways to behave to a woman.
Oh, the only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her, if she's pretty, and to someone else if she's plain.
Nonsense.
What about your brother? What about the profligate Earnest?
Oh, I shall have gotten rid of him by the end of the week. I'll say he died in Paris of apoplexy.
Oh.
Lots of people die quite suddenly of apoplexy, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear fellow. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You'd much better say a severe chill.
You're sure a severe chill is not hereditary?
Of course it isn't.
Oh, well, then my poor brother Ernest is carried off in Paris by a severe chill. That's what gets rid of him.
Yes, but didn't you say that Miss Cardew had become a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest? Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
Oh, that's all right. Cecily's not a silly romantic girl. She has a capital appetite, goes on long walks, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
Oh, I'd rather like to meet Cecily.
I will take very good care that you never do. She's excessively pretty and only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolen that you have an excessively pretty ward that's only just 18?
One does not blurt these things out to people. Gwendolen and Cecily are perfectly certain to be extremely great friends if they ever met. I bet you anything you like, a half an hour after they've met, they'll be calling each other sister.
Oh, women only do that when they've called each other a lot of other things first. Now, my dear fellows, if we want to get good tables at Willis's, we really must go up and dress. Do you know it is nearly 7?
It is always nearly 7.
Well, I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
Miss Fairfax!
Only upon my word. Gwendolen, upon my word.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Gwendolen, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Algie!
My own one.
Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and very often, nothing she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Gwendolen.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Walton, Hertfordshire.
There is a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
My own one.
How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algie, you may turn around now.
Oh, thanks, I've turned around already.
You may also ring the bell.
I escort you to carriage, my own darling.
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax at.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going Bunburying.
Yes, sir?
I shall not probably be back till Monday, so you can put away my dress clothes, my smoking jacket, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you are a pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
That is a sweet, sensible, intellectual girl. The only girl in my entire life that I would marry. What on earth are you amused at?
Oh, nothing, just anxious about poor Bunbury, that's all.
You best be careful. Your poor friend Bunbury is going to get you into a serious scrape someday.
I love scrapes. They're the only things that are never serious.
That's nonsense. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he's so serious I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of hell, and his gravity of demeanour is especially to be commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I know no one with a higher sense of duty and responsibility.
I suppose that is why he often looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I'm surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in his conversation. You must remember his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I'm sure you certainly would. You know, German and geology and things of that kind influence a man very, very much.
I do not think that even I could produce any effect on a character that, according to his own brother's admission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I really don't see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter all the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about with us.
Oh, yes, but it usually chronicles the things that never happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all 3-volume novels that Moody sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novel, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I don't like novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
The good ended happily, and the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so, but it seems very unfair.
And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no! The manuscript, unfortunately, was...
Yes, go on.
abandoned. I use the word in the sense of lost or mislaid. Do your work, child. These speculations are profitless. But as you do, Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden. Dr. Chasuble! This is indeed a pleasure.
How are you this morning? Miss Prism, you are, I trust well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. Oh. I think it would do so much good to have a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble. Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
No, dear Miss Prism, I know that, but I felt instinctively that you did have a headache. And indeed, I was thinking about that, and not my German lesson when the dear rector here came in.
I hope, Cecily, you're not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
Oh, that is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. Oh, I spoke metaphorically, my metaphor being drawn from... Please! I suppose Mr. Worthing hasn't returned from town yet?
We did not expect him till Monday afternoon.
Yes, he usually likes to spend his Sundays in London, but I mustn't disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Letitia, Doctor.
Classical illusion, merely drawn from pagan authors. I shall see you both, no doubt, at evensong.
I think, dear Doctor, I will have a stroll with you. I find I have a headache, after all, and a walk might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might go as far as the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily will read political economy in my absence.
Horrid political economy!
Horrid geography, horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station.
He has brought his luggage with him. Mr. Ernest Worthing, before the Albany W.
Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. We mentioned that you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He said he was anxious to speak to you privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here. And I suppose you'd better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I've never met a really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. Oh, I'm so afraid you look just like everyone else. He does.
You are my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure?
You are under some strange mistake. I am not little. In fact, I believe I'm more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily. And you, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest, my wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I'm not wicked, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think that I'm wicked.
If you are not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you've not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and really being good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Well, I have been rather reckless.
I am glad to hear it.
In fact, now that you mention the subject, I have been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that. Though I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It is much pleasanter being here with you.
I can't understand how you're here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back till Monday afternoon.
Oh, that is a great disappointment. I'm obliged to go up by the first train Monday morning. I have a business engagement that I'm anxious to, miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment is in London.
Well, I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. But still, I think you'd better wait till Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to talk to you about your immigrating.
About my what?
You're immigrating. He has gone up to buy your outfit.
Oh, I would not let Jack buy my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
I don't think you'll require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? Oh, it'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Oh, well, the accounts I've received of Australia and the next world are not particularly encouraging. I think this world is good enough for me, Cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm not that, I'm afraid. Oh, that is why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission this afternoon, if you don't mind.
I'm afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Well, would you mind me reforming myself this afternoon?
It's It's rather quixotic of me, but I think you should try.
Oh, I will. I feel better already.
Yeah, you were looking a little worse.
That's because I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. Of course, I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you. But might I have a flower first? I never have an appetite until I've had a flower first.
A Mary O'Neill?
I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it can be right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things to me.
Then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. The prettiest girl I ever saw in my life.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
They are a snare that any sensible man would like to be caught in.
Oh, I don't think I would care to catch a sensible man. I shouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, dear Dr. Chasuble. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand. A womanthrope never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase. The precept as well as the practice of the primitive church was distinctly against matrimony.
That is obviously the reason why the primitive church has not lost it up to the present day. And you do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive, except to his wife.
And often I've been told not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended on. Kindness can be trusted. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from Ruth. But where is Cecily?
Perhaps she followed us to the schools.
Oh, Mr. Worthing.
Mr. Worthing?
This is indeed a surprise. We did not look for you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than I expected. I hope you are well.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I hope this garb of woe doesn't betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother.
More shameful deaths and extravagances?
Still leading his life of pleasure?
Dead!
Your brother Earnest, dead?
Yes, quite dead.
What a lesson, Braden. I trust you will profit by it.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I offer you my sincere condolences. You at least the consolation of knowing you are always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Earnest. It is indeed a sad blow. He had his faults, but it is such a sad, sad blow.
Very, very sad indeed. Were you with him in the end?
No, he died abroad in Paris, in fact. I had a telegram last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Dear Miss Prism Charity, none of us are perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to drugs. Will the intendant...
No, he expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
I fear that hardly points to any very serious state of mind at the last. You no doubt would wish me to make some slight allusion to this tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the manna in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion, joyful or, in present case, distressing. I've preached it at harvest celebrations, christenings, on days of confirmation, on days of humiliation. At festival.
Oh, that reminds me. You mentioned christenings, I think, Dr. Chasuble. I'm sure you know how to christen all right? I mean, you are continually christening, are you not?
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I have often spoken to the poorer classes on the subject, but they don't seem to know what thrift is.
But, Mr. Worthing, surely, your brother, I believe, was unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes.
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But it's not for any child, dear doctor. No, I'm very fond of children. No, the matter is, I would like to be christened myself this afternoon, if you have nothing better to do.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you've been christened already.
Oh, I don't remember anything of it.
But have you any grave doubts on the subject?
Oh, I certainly intend to have. Of course, I don't know if it would be a little too weird with me being too old.
Not at all. Sprinkling and indeed the immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
You need not have explanation. Sprinkling is all that is necessary, or indeed I think advisable. Weather is so changeable. At what hour would you wish the ceremony performed?
Oh, I might trot around about 5, if that would suit you.
Perfectly, perfectly. Now, dear Mr. Worthing, I will not intrude any longer in your house of sorrow. I merely beg you not to be too bowed down by grief. What seems to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Oh, Uncle Jack, oh, I'm so pleased to see you back. Oh, but what horrid clothes you have got on.
Do go and change them.
Cecily!
My child, my child!
What is the matter, Uncle Jack? Do look happy. You look as if you'd had a toothache. And I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room?
Oh, no.
Your brother!
Who?
Your brother Ernest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
I haven't got a brother.
Uncle Jack, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he is still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll tell him to come out, and you will shake hands with him. Won't you, Uncle Jack?
My brother's in the dining room.
These are joyful tidings!
I don't understand what it all could mean.
After we had all been resigned to his loss, his sudden return seems to me peculiarly distressing.
I think it perfectly absurd. Good heavens.
Brother John! Oh, I have just come down from London to tell you how terribly sorry I am for all the trouble I've caused you. And that, well, I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack! You're not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. I think his coming down here disgraceful. He knows perfectly well why.
Uncle Jack, do we know this? There is some good in everyone.
Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, whom he goes to visit so often. And surely there must be so much good in one who's so kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit and play about pain.
No, he's been talking about Bunbury, has he?
Oh, yes, he's told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Well, I won't have him talk to you about Bunbury or anything else.
I admit the faults are all on my side, but I find Brother John's coldness to be peculiarly painful. I was expecting a much more enthusiastic welcome, especially seeing as this is the first time I have ever come here.
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me.
Never? Never? Never!
Then this shall be the last time I ever do it.
It's pleasant, is it not? To see so perfect a reconciliation. I think we might leave the two brothers together.
Cecily! My little task of reconciliation is over.
You've done a wonderful action today, dear child.
We must not be premature in our judgments.
I feel very happy.
Yes, two dollars. So good seeing you, Dr. CHASUBLE. Algy, you young scoundrel, you have to get out of here as soon as possible. I won't allow any bunburying here.
I've put Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to your own, sir. I suppose that is all right.
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. We have unpacked it and put it in the room next to your own.
His luggage?
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes.
And a large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay for more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog carts back round at once. Mr. Earnest has been called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a dreadful liar you are, Jack. I haven't been called back to town at all.
Yes, you have.
Well, I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree.
can quite understand it.
Well, Cecily's a darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous in them. Why, it's so childish. You're being in deep mourning for a man who's actually staying with you in your own house as a guest for a whole week.
You are not staying with me in my house as a guest or anything else. You have got to leave by the 4:05.
Oh, I won't leave you so long as you are in mourning. I would think it most unfriendly if I did. You see, if I were in mourning, I would hope you would stay with me. I would think it most unkind of you if you didn't.
Will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, but don't take too long. I never saw anyone take so long to change and with such little result.
That is better than being as always as overdressed as you are.
If I am occasionally overdressed, I make up for it by being always immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct and outrage and your presence in my garden, utterly absurd. You have got to leave by the 4:05. I hope you have a pleasant journey back to town. This, bunburying, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
I think it's been a great success. I am in love with Cecily, and that is everything. Oh, I must arrange to see her before I go. Oh, and arrange for another Bunbury. There she is.
Oh, I merely came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's gone to order the dog cart for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's sending me away.
Then we have got to part.
I'm afraid so. And a very painful parting it is.
It is always painful to part from people whom one has known for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
You can wait, ma'am, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
I hope, Cecily, I shall not offend you if I state quite frankly and openly that you seem to be, to me, in every way, the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you will allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Oh, do you really keep a diary? Oh, I would give anything to look at it. May I?
No. You see, it is simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I do hope you will order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on. I'm quite ready for more. Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily, when I first gazed upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think that you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily!
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
Tell him to come back next week at the same hour!
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying on until next week at the same hour.
Oh, I don't care about Jack. I don't care about anyone in the whole world. I only care about you, Cecily. I love you. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy! Of course! Why, we have been engaged for the last 3 months.
Oh, for the last 3 months?
Yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
How did we become engaged?
Well, ever since the younger brother who is very wicked and bad, you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And a man who's always talked about is always very attractive, and I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Darling, when was our engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or the other. And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you under this dear old tree here. Oh, the next day I bought this little ring in your name and this little bangle with the true lover's knot I promised you always to wear.
Oh, did I get that for you? Oh, it's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes. You've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given for you leading such a bad life. Oh, and this is the box in which I keep all of your dear letters.
My letters? Cecily, I never wrote you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember only too well that I was forced to write your letters for you. I always wrote 3 times a week, and sometimes oftener.
Oh, do let me look at them.
Oh, no, I couldn't possibly. They would make you far too conceited. Oh, the 3 you wrote me after I broke off our engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
Was our engagement ever broken off?
Well, of course it was! On the 22nd of last March. You can read the entry if you like. I read it twice to explain everything.
Sorry.
Yes. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
But why did you break it off? What had I done? What? I had done nothing, Cecily. I'm very hurt indeed to hear that you broke off our engagement, particularly when the weather was so charming.
It would have hardly been a really serious engagement if I hadn't broken it off at least once. I forgive you. The week was out.
Oh, what a perfect angel you are, Cecily.
You dear romantic boy.
But you'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily.
Oh, I don't think I could now that I've actually met you. Besides, of course, there's the question of your name.
Yes, of course, my name.
You must not laugh at me, darling, but it had always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Ernest. The name inspires one with absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
But, my dear child, do you really mean to say that you couldn't love me if I had some other name?
But what other name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
My dear, sweet, loving little darling. I really can't see why you should object to the name of Algernon. It's not really a bad name, after all. In fact, it is a rather aristocratic name. I mean, half the chaps that get into the bankruptcy court are called Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, if my name was Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might even admire your character. But I fear I should not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here is, I'm sure, thoroughly experienced in all the rites and practices of the ceremonies of the church.
Oh, yes. Dr. CHASUBLE is a most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him at once on a most important christening. I mean, most important business.
Oh?
I shan't be gone for more than half an hour.
Considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th last, and that I have only met you today for the first time, I think it is rather hard that you should leave it for so long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I do like his hair so much. I must enter his proposal into my diary. see Mr. Worthing.
On very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Isn't Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Oh, pray, ask the lady to come out here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon. And you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Oh. Miss Fairfax, I suppose one of many good elderly women who's associated with Uncle Jack in his philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are interested in philanthropic work. I think it's so forward of them.
Miss Fairfax!
Pray, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew. Cecily Cardew. What a very sweet name. Something tells me that we're going to be great friends. And you're already more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong. How nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other for such a comparatively short time. Pray, sit down. I may call you Cecily, may I not? Oh, with pleasure. And you will always call me Gwendolen, won't you? If you wish. Then that is all quite settled, is it not? I hope so. Perhaps this might be a favourable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. Oh. You have never heard of Papa, I suppose? I don't think so. Outside the family circle, Papa, I am glad to say, is entirely unknown. I think that is quite as it should be. The home seems to me to be the proper sphere for the man. Cecily! Mama, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. It is part of her system. So, do you mind my looking at you through my glasses? Oh, not at all, Gwendolen. I'm very fond of being looked at. You are here on a short visit, I suppose. Oh, no, I live here. Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years resides here also. Oh, no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations. Indeed. My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss PRISM, has the arduous task of looking after me. Your guardian? Yes, I'm Mr. Worthing's ward. Oh! It is strange you never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I am not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. Cecily, I am very fond of you. I have liked you ever since I met you. But I feel bound to state that now that I know that you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish that you were, well, just a little older than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly, pray do I think that whenever one has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid. Well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish that you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Earnest has a strong, upright nature. He's the very soul of truth and honor. Disloyalty would be as impossible to him as deception. But even men of the noblest possible moral character are extremely susceptible to the influence of the physical charms of others. I beg your pardon, Gwendolen. Did you say Earnest? Yes. Oh! But it is not Mr. Earnest Worthing who's my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother. Earnest never mentioned to me that he had a brother. I'm sorry to say they have not been on good terms for a long time. Ah, that accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I've never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would have been terrible if any clan had come across a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course. You are quite sure that it is not Mr. Earnest Worthing who is your guardian. Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his. I mean, dear Gwendolen, there's no reason why I should make a secret of it to you. Our little country newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Earnest Worthing and I are engaged to be married. My darling Cecily, I think there must be some slight error. Mr. Earnest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest. I'm afraid you must be under some misconception. Earnest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago. It is certainly very curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel anywhere without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read in the train. Oh, I'm so sorry, dear Cecily, if it is any disappointment to you, but I'm afraid I have the prior claim. It would distress me more than I can tell you, dearest Gwendolen, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Earnest has proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind. If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once and with a firm hand. Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have gotten himself into, I will never reproach him with it after we are married. Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure. You suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Earnest into an engagement. How dare you! This is no time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade. I'm glad to say that I have never seen a spade. It is obvious that our social spheres have been widely different. Shall we lay tea here as usual, miss? Yes, as usual. Croquet, Miss Fairfax. Delighted. Oh, after you. Oh, I couldn't. Oh, I will. Oh, I will. Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew? Oh, yes, a great many. From one at the top of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties. 5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds. I suppose that's why you live in town. Quite a well-kept garden this is, Miss Cardew. So glad you like it. Miss Fairfax. I had no idea there were any flowers in the country. Oh yes, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London. Whoops. Personally, I cannot understand how anybody manages to exist in the country, if anybody who is anybody does. The country always bores me to death. Oh, may I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax? Detestable girl! But I require tea. Sugar? No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore. Cake or bread and butter? Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays. Hand that to Miss Fairfax. You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar, and though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature, but I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far. To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, not a least to which I would not go. From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I felt that you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right. It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you've any cause for my character to make in the name of Earnest! My own Earnest!
Gwendolen!
A moment. May I ask if you are engaged to be married to this young lady?
Dear little Cecily, of course not. Who could have put such an idea in your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may. I knew there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arm at present round your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing. I beg your pardon. This is Uncle Jack. Jack! Oh, here is Earnest.
My own love.
A moment, Earnest, if I may ask. Are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
What young lady? Oh, good heavens, Gwendolen!
Yes, good heavens. I mean,
have put a silly idea into your pretty little head.
Thank you, you may. I felt there was some slight error, Miss Cardew. The gentleman who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief? Are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Is your name really John?
I could deny if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name is most certainly John. It has been John for years.
A gross dissection has been practiced on both of us. My poor wounded Cecily. My sweet wronged Gwendolyn. You will call me sister, will you not?
There is just one question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
An admirable idea, Mr. Worthing. There is just one question I would like to be permitted to be put to you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is a matter of some importance to us to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolen, Cecily, it is very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. This is the first time in my entire life I have ever been reduced to such a painful position, and I'm really quite inexperienced in doing anything of the kind. However, I will tell you quite frankly, I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all, and I do not have the smallest intention of ever having a brother.
No brother at all?
None.
Oh, have you never a brother of any kind?
Not of any kind.
I'm afraid it is quite clear, Cecily, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone. It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to find herself in, is it? Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This ghastly state of things is what you call bun-burning, I suppose.
Yes, the most wonderful Bunbury it's been. The most wonderful Bunbury I've had in my entire life.
Oh, you have no right whatsoever to Bunbury here.
No one has a right to Bunbury wherever one pleases. Every serious Bunburyist knows that.
Serious Bunburys? Good heavens.
One must be serious about something if one is to have any amusement in life. I happen to be serious about Bunbury. What on earth you are serious about, I haven't got the next idea.
The only small satisfaction I have in this whole wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to run down to the country quite as often as you used to. The very good thing of that too, Algy.
Oh, your dear brother. He's looking a little off colour, isn't he, dear Jack? Won't be able to go disappearing to London quite so frequently as your wicked custom was. Not a bad thing, either.
And as for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I think you're taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl to be quite inexcusable, let alone the fact that she is my ward.
I can see no possible defence for your deceiving a brilliant, clever, and thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I want to be engaged to Gwendolen. That is all. I love her.
I simply wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There's certainly no chance of you marrying Miss Cardew.
But I don't think there's much likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
Well, that is no business of yours.
If it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it.
How you can sit there calmly eating muffins when we're in this horrible trouble, I can't make out. You seem to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat them in an agitated manner. The butter would get on my cuffs. One must always eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
Well, I think it perfectly heartless. You're eating them at all under the circumstances.
When I'm in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. At the present moment, I'm eating muffins because I'm unhappy. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, that is no reason why you should eat them all in that greedy way.
Well, have some cheesecake instead. I don't like cheesecake.
Oh, good heavens! I suppose a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden.
You just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
No, I said it was perfectly heartless of you, under the circumstances. That is a very different thing.
That may be, but the muffins are the same.
The fact that they did not follow us at once into the house as anyone else would have done seems to me to show that they have some sense of shame left.
They've been eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
Algy, I wish to goodness you would go.
Well, you can't possibly ask me to go before I've had some dinner first. It's absurd. I never go without my dinner. Nobody ever does, except, I don't know, vegetarians and people like that. Besides, I've already arranged to meet with Dr. CHASUBLE at 6:15 to be christened under the name of Earnest.
Oh, my dear fellow, The sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. I made arrangements this morning with Dr. CHASUBLE to be christened myself at 5:30, and I will naturally take the name of Earnest. Gwendolen would wish it. We both can't be christened Earnest. It's absurd. Besides, there is no evidence I have ever been christened before, and I think it extremely probable I never was. So does Dr. CHASUBLE. Your case is entirely different. You have been christened already.
Yes, but I haven't been christened for years.
Yes, but you have been christened before. That's the important thing.
Yes, so I know my constitution can handle it. I dare say. If you're not quite sure about your having been christened before, I think it rather dangerous you're venturing on it now. You know, it might make you most unwell. You can hardly have forgotten that someone very close to you was very nearly carried off in Paris this week by a severe chill.
You said yourself a severe chill was not hereditary.
It usedn't to be, I know, but I dare say it is now. Science is always making wonderful improvements in things.
That's nonsense. You're always talking nonsense.
They don't seem to notice us at all. Couldn't you cough? But I haven't got a cough. Oh.
Jack, you ate the muffins again. I wish you wouldn't. I told you I'm particularly fond of them, and there are only 2 left. What ideas you have of hospitality.
Allergy. I've asked you to go. I don't want you here. Why won't you go?
I haven't finished my tea yet. Oh, there's 1 muffin left. 40. Too hot. No. Don't. John Worthing. You wouldn't.
They're looking at us! What effrontery! Oh, they're approaching next very wall without them!
You suppose they're mad?
Yes, they're mad! We should probably do something to smooth it over with them.
Oh, we could dance. Women love to dance.
Yes, but I've seen you dance. I dance wonderfully. You dance like an ape. Oh, we can recite poetry.
What is this?
I know it's poetry.
Oh, I'll teach you. Shakespeare.
What on earth is Shakespeare?
I suppose a little peek couldn't hurt. Oh dear!
You know, iambic pentameter or anything like that?
Oh, dear, not this one.
No, iambic pentameter. No. You really don't know Shakespeare? No. He's a poet and a
Oh, I know a poetry playwright. Oscar Wilde.
Oh, never heard of him.
Oh! Where is that girl? CECILY!
Wait for me, PRISM!
Let us preserve a dignified silence. Oh, certainly. It is the only thing to do now.
But soft, what light from yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more
Temperate.
temperate.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
A most distasteful one.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Oh, certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I have something very particular to ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolen, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have the opportunity of meeting you.
That certainly seems a satisfactory explanation, is it not?
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't. But it does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
True. It matters of grave importance. Style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you might come up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts upon the subject. But this is not the moment for German scepticism. Their explanations appear to be quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's. That seems to me to have the stamp of truth upon it.
I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrief said. His voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity.
Then you think we should forgive them?
Yes! I mean, no!
True. I had forgotten. There are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. Which of us should be the one to tell them? The task is not a pleasant one.
Could we not both speak at the same time?
An excellent idea! I nearly always speak at the same time as other people.
Certainly.
1, 2. Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names, is that all? But we are going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing.
I am.
To please me.
You already faced this fearful ordeal.
I am.
How absurd it is to talk of the equality of the sexes. Where questions of self-sacrifice are concerned, men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
They have moments of physical courage about which we women know absolutely nothing.
Darling! Darling! No, you.
Lady Bracknell!
Good heavens!
What does this mean?
I'm engaged!
Sit down immediately! Apprised, sir, of my daughter's sudden flight, I followed her at once by a luggage train. You will clearly understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment. On this point, as indeed on all points, I am firm.
And I'm engaged to Gwendolen, Lady.
You are nothing of the kind, sir. And now, as regards Algernon. Algernon.
Yes, Auntie Gosnell?
Take a proper seat. May I ask if it is in this house that your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides?
Bunbury? No, he doesn't live here. Bunbury's somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury is dead.
Dead? When did Mr. Bunbury die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
I killed Bunbury this afternoon. Bunbury died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Bunbury? He was quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he the victim of a revolutionary outrage? I was not aware that Mr. Bunbury was interested in social legislation.
My dear Aunt Augusta, I mean to say that Bunbury was found out. I mean that Bunbury's doctors found out that Bunbury could not live anymore. So that is what I mean. So Bunbury died.
He seems to have had great confidence in the opinion of his physicians. I am glad, however, that he made up his mind at the last to some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. And now that we have got rid of this Mr. Bunbury, may I ask, Mr. Worthing, who is that young person whose hand my nephew Algernon is now holding in what seems to me a peculiarly unnecessary manner?
That is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I'm engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon.
Mr. Moncrief and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know whether there is anything peculiarly exciting in the air of this particular part of Hertfordshire. but the number of engagements that go on seems to me considerably above the proper average statistics have laid down for our guidance. I think some preliminary inquiry on my part would not be out of place. Mr. Worthing, is Miss Cardew at all connected to any of the larger railway stations in London? I merely desire information. Before yesterday, I had no idea that there were any families or persons whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, SW Javas Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Sporring, Fifeshire, MB.
That sounds not unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always inspire confidence, even in tradesmen. But what proof have I of their authenticity?
I have carefully preserved the court guides at the time. They're open to your inspection, Lady Bracknell.
I have no strange errors in that publication.
Miss Cardew's family solicitors are Messrs. Markby, and Markby.
Markby, and Muckby, a firm of the very highest position in their profession. So far, I am satisfied.
Oh, how extremely kind of you, Lady Bracknell. I also have in my possession, you'll be pleased to know, certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, vaccination, confirmation, and the measles, both the German and English brides.
Oh, a life crowded with incident, I see, though perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I am not myself in favour of premature experiences. Gwendolen, the time approaches for our departure. We have not a moment to lose. As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I had to ask you if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
Oh, about £130,000 in the funds, that is all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell, so please do.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. £130,000! And in the funds, Miss Cardew seems to me a most attractive young lady now that I look at her. Come over here, dear. Pretty child. Your dress is sadly simple, and your hair seems almost as if nature might have left it. But we can soon alter all that. Kindly turn around, sweet child. Yes, quite as I expected. There are distinct social possibilities in your profile. Algernon.
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the sweetest, dearest, prettiest girl in all the world, and I don't care tuppence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Dear child, of course you know that Algernon has nothing but his depth to depend upon. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cecily, you may kiss me.
Thank you, Lady
You may
Bracknell.
also address me as Aunt Augusta for the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt
To
Augusta.
speak frankly, I'm not in favour of long engagements. They give people the opportunity of finding out each other's character before marriage, which I think is never advisable.
Excuse me, Lady Bracknell, but I'm quite afraid this engagement is out of the question. I'm Miss Cardew's guardian, and she cannot legally marry without my consent. And that consent I absolutely decline.
Upon what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is extremely, I may almost say, an ostentatious, eligible young man. He has nothing, but looks everything. What more can one desire?
It pains me very much to have to speak frankly to you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew. But the fact is, I do not approve at all of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon? Impossible. He is an Oxonian.
Oh, I fear there can be no possible doubt about the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence in London, under an important question of relevance, he obtained admission to my house under the false pretense of being my brother. Under an assumed name, he drank, I've been informed by my butler, an entire pint-sized bottle of wine. Continuing his disgraceful deception, he succeeded in the course of the afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin. And what makes his conduct all the more heartless is that he was perfectly aware from the first that I have no brother, I never had a brother, and that I do not intend to have a brother, not even of any kind. I told him so myself yesterday afternoon.
Mr. Wilde, after careful consideration, I have decided entirely to overlook my nephew's conduct.
Oh, how generous of you, Lady Bracknell. But my decision is still unalterable. I decline to give my consent.
Come over here, sweet child. How old are you, dear?
Well, I am really only 18, but I always admit 20 when I go to evening parties.
18, but admitted to 20 at evening parties. Well, it will not be very long before you are of age and free from the restraints of tutelage. So, I don't think your guardian's consent is, after all, a matter
I beg your pardon, Lady Bracknell. But it's only fair to tell you that according to the terms of her grandfather's will, she does not become legally of age until she is 35.
Oh, that does not seem to be an objection. 35 is a very attractive age. London society is full of women of the very highest birth who have, of their own free choice, remained 35 for years.
Algy, could you wait for me till I was 35?
Oh, of course I could, Cecily. You know I could.
Yes, I felt it instinctively. But I couldn't wait all that time. I hate waiting even 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me rather cross. I'm not punctual myself, I know, but I do like punctuality in others, and waiting even to be married is quite out of the question.
But what is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrief.
As Miss Cardew states positively that she cannot wait till she is 35, a remark which I am bound to say seems to me to show a somewhat impatient nature. I would beg of you to reconsider your decision.
Oh, but dear Lady Bracknell, the decision is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage with Gwendolen, I will gladly allow your nephew to form the lines with my ward.
You must be quite aware that what she proposes is out of the question.
Then a passionate celibacy is all any of us can look forward to.
That is not the destiny I propose for Gwendolen. Algernon, of course, can choose for himself.
Come, dear, we have already missed 5, if not 6, trains. To miss any more may expose us to comment on the platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christening.
The christening, sir? Is that not somewhat premature?
But both these gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
At their age, the idea is grotesque and irreligious.
Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized.
Am I to understand then there are to be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I don't think, as things are now, it would be much practical value to either of us, Dr. CHASUBLE.
I'm grieved to hear such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing. However, as your current mood seems rather secular, I will return to the church at once. Indeed, Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Miss Prism? Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, I'm on my way to join her.
Pray allow me to detain you for a moment. This matter may prove to be one of vital importance for Lord Bracknell and myself. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies, the very picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
I am celibate, madam.
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, for the last 3 years has been Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
In spite of what I hear, I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
She approaches. She's not.
I was told you expected me in the vestry, dear Canon. I have been waiting for you there for 1 hour and 3/4.
Prism. Come here, Prism. Prism, where is that baby?
28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104 Grosvenor Street,
in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned.
A few weeks later, through the elaborate investigations of the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was discovered at midnight, standing by itself in a remote corner of Bayswater. It contained the manuscript of a 3-volume novel of more than usually revolting sentimentality.
But the baby was not there. Prism,
On the morning of the day you mention, a day that is forever branded on my memory, I prepared, as usual, to take the baby out in its perambulator. I had also with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag in which I had intended to place the manuscript of a work of fiction that I had written during my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction, for which I never can forgive myself, I deposited the manuscript in the bassinet and placed the baby in the handbag.
But where did you deposit the handbag? Move, Algiers!
Go on.
But where did you deposit the handbag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, this is no small matter of importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag that contained that infant.
I left it in the cloakroom of one of the larger railway stations in London.
What railway station?
Victoria! The frightened mine!
I must retire to my room for a moment. Gwendolen, wait for me here.
Oh, my life!
What can this mean, Lady Bracknell?
Oh, I dare not even suspect, Dr. Chasuble. I need hardly tell you that in families of high position, strange coincidences are not supposed to occur. They are hardly considered the thing.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Your guardian has a very emotional nature.
This noise is extremely unpleasant.
It'll stop now.
I wish you would arrive at some conclusion.
The suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
Miss Prism, is this the handbag? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends upon your answer.
It seems to be mine. Yes. Here is the injury it received through the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus in younger and happier days. Here is the stain in the lining, caused by the explosion of a temperance beverage, an incident that occurred at Leamington. And here, on the lock, are my initials. I had forgotten that, in an extravagant mood, I had them placed there. The bag is undoubtedly mine. I am delighted to have had it so unexpectedly restored to me. It has been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more was restored to you than that handbag. I was the infant you placed in it.
You?
Yes. Mother! I'm married. I do not deny that this is a serious blow. But after all, who can cast a stone against one who has already suffered? Can no repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why should there be one law for women and another for men?
Amen.
Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there is some error. Here is the lady who can tell you who you really are.
No. Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me of who I am?
I'm afraid that the news I have to give you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Miss Moncrief, and consequently Algernon's elder brother.
Algy's elder brother. I'm a brother after all! Oh, CECILY, how could you ever doubted that I had a brother? Dr. Chasuble, my unfortunate brother. Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother. Braden, my unfortunate brother. Algy, you scoundrel. You have to treat me with more respect in the future. You've never behaved to me as a brother in your entire life.
Well, not until today, I admit. But now I was a little out of practice. I tried my best.
My own one. But what own are you? What is your Christian name now that you've become somebody else?
I'd quite forgotten that point. I suppose your decision on the subject of my name is still irrevocable.
I never change, except in my affections.
What a noble nature you have, Gwendolen.
Aunt Augusta, a moment. When Miss Prism placed me in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been lavished on you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I had been christened before. That matter is settled. What was my given name? Let me know the worst.
Being the eldest son, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I cannot at the present recall what the general's Christian name was, but I've no doubt he had one. He was eccentric, I admit, but only in later years, and that was the result of the climate, and marriage, and indigestion, and other things of that kind.
Auntie, can you recollect the father's Christian name?
Oh, my dear fellow, we were never on speaking terms. He died when I was a year old.
His name will appear in the army list of the period, I suppose. Right, Aunt Augusta.
The general was essentially a man of peace, except in his domestic life. But I have no doubt that his name will appear in any military directory.
The army lists of the last 40 years are here! Malum, Moxham, gas of names they all have. Marksy, Migsby, Moncrief, Lieutenant, 1840, Captain, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, General. Christian names. Earnest, John. My name really is Earnest. And I mean naturally earnest.
Yes! I remember now that the general was called Earnest. I knew I had some particular reason for disliking the name.
Earnest, my own Earnest. I felt from the first that you could have no other name.
Gwendolyn, it's such a horrible thing for a man to find out he's been speaking nothing but the truth his entire life. Can you forgive me?
I can, for I feel that you are sure to change.
My own one.
Tessa!
Frederick, at last!
Cecily, at last!
Gwendolyn, at last.
My dear nephew, you seem to be displaying signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, for the first time in my entire life, I've realized the vital importance of being earnest.